Good morning. This is Sean with Price Realtors with our excuse me, our market report for the last 7 days. These numbers come specifically from Vienna, McLean, and Great Falls, and we just want to give you a good analysis of what's going on in the market and what's happened in the last 7 days. So, as usual, we're going to start off with the buyer activity versus inventory. You can see that these areas over here, this was what we were at during the summer, and we've been slowly trending downwards. What we saw over the previous 2 weeks was that we started to see an uptick in activity. What was interesting about this last week is we saw that buyer activity actually decreased a little bit and seller activity decreased quite a bit, or inventory, I should say. So we had a significant decrease in inventory and a not as significant decrease in buyer activity. So the general trend is still kind of moving in the upward direction than when we were at our lowest. But it'll be interesting to see next week if these activities actually pick up a little bit or if they continue down. So if you take this data and you look at the difference between buyer activity and seller activity, you can bring it over here and we can look at buyer's market versus seller's market. So if you look at last week, you'll see that they were almost identical between buyer and seller activity. So that put us into what almost a neutral market. But what's happened this week is because the buyer activity decreased, but it decreased less than seller activity. That means there's more buyers than there is demand or supply. So there's more demand than there is supply, which means we move into a seller's market. So the last 7 days has been a seller's market, and what that means for your sellers is likely a continuation of multiple offers on most properties. Certainly most properties going at ask or above as long as they're priced appropriately. And then from the buyer's perspective, you're still facing competition out there. You're not facing as much competition as there was back here in the summer, but there's still competition and it's starting to get back to that point. So depending on what happens over the next couple of weeks, we'll see if this continues into the strong seller's market or if we start to see a tick that might move it back down toward the buyer's market before we hit the spring. So stay tuned next week. We'll see what's going on with the movement for this upcoming 7 days, and we'll have a better idea about what to expect. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and I will see you guys next week.